In this section, I'll be explaining the basic elements of the textures on our game objects. The basic concepts of surface normals and color maps will be explored to some degree in this section. Alright, so here is the basic mesh of one of the rocks that we're using. It's using triangle faces, which are the simplest form of faces, so therefore it's the easiest for the game engine to render. And in this section we'll be covering texture mapping. So here is the first layer, the color map of this rock. As you can see, it's just the image here. And it is custom fit for this rock. This rock was split down this seam all the way around, and the program figured out how best to lay it flat on a two-dimensional plane so that this texture can be easily mapped to this surface from 2D to 3D. I'm going to go turn on the color map. As you can see, there it is. And basically, each one of these faces on this corresponds to this. So if I select this, there's a face right here. On this object, it's just a single layer. I have a basic color layer, and then I have a detail layer. And I'm going to switch over to the tree, because on the tree I actually kept the layers separate in Blender. This is the basic color. I just painted this onto the surface so it doesn't have a seam. So this is the first layer, and then I have the detail layer, which utilizes the basic color of this and kind of overlays itself over the top. And I did the same thing on the rock. It's just that they're combined into one image for use in Blender, whereas this is actually combined into two layers. So there's, if I turn off the base color, you'll just kind of see a white underneath it. Alright, so next I'm going to talk about surface normals because they are very important in the way the object is shaded. Basically, surface normal is defining what direction this face is pointing. These faces are all flat, and the program needs to be able to figure out which way the face is pointing so that light can hit it. There are visual indicators of your normals. Just a little blue line. This is essentially just an arrow pointing out from this face, showing you this is the way that this is facing. And sometimes they can get screwed up, like they'll be pointing inside, and that'll cause weird errors where you have like this weird black spot here because light's not hitting it right. But when you rotate the face, all the normals rotate as well. And the more faces there are, the more normals there are. And the more normals there are, the more surfaces there are for the light to hit. I'm going to turn on the complex rock. This rock has a lot more faces, as you can see. And so, since it has more faces, it has more surfaces for the light to hit, and it looks more complex. Move light across it, this just has a flat, blah, it just moves across. And this, you can see all the little nuances and cracks and stuff in the rock. But there is a way to actually take the physical surface normals from this rock and turn them into texture normals on this rock. And that's what this map is for. I'm going to talk about baking normals in another section, but it basically calculates the difference between these two and turns them into this. So Blender reads the normal map like a code. It uses the combination of the different percentages of red, green, and blue to define the way that light hits the surface in X, Y, and Z. Here's the normal map, and I've actually added even more detail from when I baked the surface detail from this, and then I added even more because you can add it later. But I'll show you now. It looks like there's detail on that surface when there actually isn't. The biggest weakness of normal maps is if you look at this from the side, you can see that there's bumps and stuff, and there's variation in the surface. You look at this from the side and there's nothing. It's still pretty straight and flat, but if you look at it from the side or a distance, it looks really nice. And this is a great way of getting extra details. In this section, I covered the two basic texture layers that we're utilizing in this graphics demo. The first layer is the color map. This is a simple image that gives the object a colored and detailed surface. The second layer is a normal map. This layer serves a more complex purpose than the color map, since it creates the illusion of a much more detailed physical surface than is actually represented by the geometry. The normal map changes how light hits the surface, allowing for a very nice look. So here is kind of a behind-the-scenes look of our scene. This kind of shows the different layers of trees I'm setting up to make a really thick-looking forest. You got the really high-detail trees around here. You go all the way in and, got your high-detail trees. Here's a medium-low. It's just a whole bunch of flat planes. I just basically rendered the tree from multiple angles and applied it on, so it kind of looks like that. And it looks okay from a distance, but it looks really bad up close. And then I have the low quality ones, which are just a flat plane, but it's kind of bent around, so it's not completely flat. And then I have some that are just a flat plane, a single face, and these are really far away. And then I just took a giant group of the trees that was really pretty taxing on the system to display them all at once. I just took a giant group of the trees and I just rendered them all in a big strip. And I put these on the outside edges to cover up any parts where there might be holes if you look from here through here. But here's the entire scene. It's pretty large. Really the only area that you can actually walk around in is right around in here. This is a plane that is designed to let you walk up the hill more easily. See, so here, this is a textured view, and we got the sky dome, which is just a texture, a big sky texture applied to a dome on the outside. It's kind of an interesting looking view here. This is what the geometry, that's just plain geometry shaded gray, looks like. You got all these little cross star thingies here. These are our medium detail. We got these lumpy things here. These are our high detail trees. So you got these, which are our low detail branches, and then you got these, which are our high detail branches. As you can see, there's a big difference between them. These are our grass. These are our snarly bushes. This is still a filler for the cabin. We're going to be getting that in the next day or so. But yeah, there's the scene. I'll go back into textured mode. And there you go. In this section, I covered some texture and detail baking techniques. The objective behind these techniques is to cram as much detail into your scene as possible in the most efficient way you can. Finally, with using traditional render setups, one can create a complex object and simplify it for distant object display.